I need one of those. My name is Rinalia Abdulrahim. I am a member of the ICANN at-large advisory committee, and I am the moderator of this session. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce you to key individuals who will be helping me facilitate the session. The first is Ms. Bianca Ho. Please wave, Bianca. She is the timekeeper. Panelists, please take note. When you reach your time limit, she will stand up and give you that paper. And she will start waving her arms wildly if you exceed that time limit. And also helping us with remote moderation is a young lady from Azerbaijan by the name of Vusala. I think she just stepped out of the room. Welcome to workshop 122, which is on new generic top-level domains, potential and implication for community engagement, advocacy, and development. And it is organized by ICANN at-large, Asia-Pacific Regional at-large Organization, APRALO, and the .Kids Foundation. So let me set a little bit of context for this workshop. In June of last year, ICANN launched its new generic top-level domain program. And in June of this year, they released the results of this program, which basically amounts to close to 2,000 applications. Out of these applications, only 4% are classified as community-related. Now, there is some overlap with geographic names, and there is also some overlap with IDNs. But if you add geographic names to the community cluster, it only comes up to 7%. And if you add all of IDNs, which are not necessarily community-related or geographic-related, they come up to less than 13%. The number is not large. So there is clearly a low uptake of new gTLDs for communities, and this could be due to lack of awareness about the gTLD program itself. But for community in particular, it is possible that the value proposition of generic top-level domains is not well understood, and there are barriers for uptake. This workshop is intended to explore what is the value and the opportunities associated with generic top-level domains, and if there is a value and an opportunity, what are the challenges for starting up and for sustainability? And also, what are the solutions of how do we overcome the challenges? Today, there is a group of speakers who will help us understand the issues based on their experiences. There are basically two groups. The first group represent communities who have applied for generic top-level domains. We have Edmund Chong, representing .Asia, Yanis Lee, representing .Kids, Andrei Kolesnikov, who coordinates .RU for Russia and is involved with .Kids in Russian, Scott Seitz, who represents .Gay. We are missing a few panelists, but when they come in, I'll introduce them later. The second group of panelists are basically community members who will share their thoughts on these issues, and they are Cheryl Langdon-Orr from Australia, Fuad Bajwa from Pakistan, and if she shows up, Olga Cavalli from Argentina. So let us begin with a presentation from Edmund Chong. He has 10 minutes basically to do a presentation to set the context, give you a bit of introduction about the new gTLD program, and also highlight the issues from his point of view. And then the other presenters in the community group will have 5 minutes to basically articulate their issues and point of view as well. And for each of these panelists, they will describe their TLD initiative, what community their TLD intends to serve, how they have engaged the community, if at all, and how does the TLD itself help in the development of advocacy, community advocacy, development and engagement, and what are the challenges and benefits. Edmund?
Thank you, Renalia, and thank you everyone for joining. So as Renalia mentioned, I'll talk a little bit about, I guess, the background that what we are talking about, not just on the new gTLD program, but focusing a little bit more on the community applications. And then I'll share a little bit about the, I guess, the experience with .Asia, us being one of the existing new gTLDs that are, I would say, community-based. So, as Renali mentioned, and I think most people know, it has been a long process, the whole ICANN process about new gTLDs, even before 1998, all the way to now, 2012. But just a quick look back at the history when this is sort of pre-ICANN period. These are sort of the gTLDs that we're talking about, and they're in .com, .net, .org, and a few others. And Some of them are open, some of them are more for certain communities as well. But the real sort of test of this particular program started actually in 2000 when ICANN received, actually at that time, around 50 applications for new gTLDs, and 7 were approved or selected, and out of which there were actually a few of them that were community, I would say, has some community aspect to it, and they were called sponsored TLDs, like .arrow, .coop, and .museum. And in 2004, another round of new gTLDs came along, and there were actually 10 applications, 10 applicants for that particular round, and 8 of which were selected. And all these are called sponsored, what is called sponsored gTLDs. And the reason why I bring this up is because this has a very tight relationship, I guess, with what we now call community-based TLDs. And sponsored gTLDs really means sponsored community, the community for which they try to serve as well. So right now, what we're talking about today on the internet, there are about 280 TLDs that are delegated, and we're looking at a pretty big expansion since, as Rinaldi mentioned, in June, ICANN went forward with the new gTLD program. What we have today right now, this is the view today. Most of the TLDs are actually what is called CCTLDs, country code top-level domains, and a very small sliver of that is gTLDs. But in the future, the biggest difference is that there's going to be a huge chunk of new top-level domains. And as Rinaldi actually also mentioned, about 2,000 of which we're talking at about 1,400 new top-level domains possibilities. And then one of the first factors that immediately comes to attention is the distribution of these TLDs in terms of the applicants, in terms of geographic imbalance, if you will. We looked at it in terms of the numbers from North America, Europe, Asia Pacific, Latin America, and Africa. If you look at purely where the application came from, there is about 47% that's coming from North America. But if you add back a number of them that are actually utilizing entities outside of North America, but actually representing essentially North American companies, we add back about 280 of them, and you reach to almost 70%. Almost 70% is coming from the North American region. And the other thing about that jumps out in terms of statistics are that the major applicants are occupying a pretty big space. The top 5 alone represents about 30% of the number of applications. And of course, it brings back to the focus of today's topic, which is the very small sliver of applications that are community-based. And here you see another aspect that jumped up is that a lot of brands are coming on board as new TLDs. But there are only really 4% of what is called community applications, and here are the 84 of them that are posted here. And as Rinaldi also mentioned, a good chunk of them are actually gTLDs. About 11 of them are gTLDs, 7 of them are IDN TLDs, and interestingly enough, 4 of them are from the Catholic, from the Vatican essentially. And so this is what we're seeing in terms of the new gTLD applications, and we only have 3 applicants coming in for financial support. And one of the things that I want to bring out is how the new gTLD process defines community, and there are really 2 aspects of it, one of which is from the earlier rounds, which we called sponsored community. We've moved to call it a community priority, and there are a number of criterias. There are a number of criterias which you have to meet in terms of the applications: community establishment, nexus, policies, community endorsements, and you have to get these points sort of to pass. The other big aspect would be the joint applicant support program that was put in place by a lot of effort. In fact, since 2010, tirelessly have been working on the program through 2010 until September 2011, when the final report was put in place. Eventually, it was implemented as a financial assistance process, and then there were also a point system and three particular aspects, one of which is public interest benefit, the other one is financial need, and then financial capability. And I think one of the things I want to highlight is that a lot of these requirements is essentially, a lot of these requirements actually is very complicated, and also that's where I wanted to bring our experience from .Asia to sort of a light. .Asia ourselves was started. In fact, the whole ideas was started in year 2000 when the community around Asia talked about this, and it was a pretty long process for which until we participated in the 2004 round of new gTLDs, and then through the process we have sort of grown in a way. But what is I guess one of the highlights that I want to bring out is that when .Asia put in the application for .Asia, we had only 9 members. That's in 2004. And in 2006, we grew to 20 members. In 2010, 28 members. This year, we're up to 30 members. And one of the key aspects is that the requirement for the new gTLD process is you need to have community endorsement out of the gate. But if we're talking about community engagement and community development, a lot of times the community doesn't come together until it becomes real. Until there is a .Asia, members will not join. That's the reality of it, and that is one of the things that I think is very important to point out in terms of the new gTLD process. And coming to the other point is that for .Asia ourselves, besides it being a registry, us being a not-for-profit organization, one of the important aspect is to promote internet development and adoption around Asia. And another important part of which is in sort of an advocacy vision is to bring the collaborative spirit of the internet community around Asia and leverage that to other things, economic and growth and development of the region itself. This is something that is sort of beyond just running the registry, just running the TLD as a domain registry. We hope to provide a sort of a canvas or a breeding ground for new initiatives around Asia, and to bring out the collaborative spirit. And since the launch of .Asia, we have been able to put in place a lot of different projects. For example, we're supporting the One Laptop Per Child initiative around Asia. We're supporting ISIF, the Information Society Innovations Fund. We have a Relief.Asia program, and what is important is that the community is responding. It's not just our own efforts. We're seeing government initiatives start using .Asia domains, FutureGov.Asia, Development Bank of Asia utilizing Development.Asia, and these are some of the important aspects that we bring out. And finally, I think, sort of to close, one of the important community projects that we put out is sort of an advocacy angle, and it's all about internet governance participation in Asia Pacific. One of the core projects that we sort of help put together and also put forward is the regional IGF in Asia Pacific, and we continue to support it as a secretariat. And the other one, you've seen young people coming from Hong Kong, from Asia. NetMission.Asia is another important initiative that we run. This year, NetMission actually created, from the NetMission alumni, a program for secondary school students, which is called NetY.Asia. And you will see a few of them around the IGF as well. And another aspect of which is the Youth Internet Governance Forum camp, which also the NetMission program created. So I guess the sort of closing remark is really that as .Asia, in terms of the experience, we saw that the community, in terms of community engagement, endorsement, development, a lot of which needs to happen after the TLD is in operation and allows us to bring together the community and bring together the resources to do it. So that's sort of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Edmund. Before you go, could you please clarify what you mean by members of .Asia? Very quickly.
Sorry,
Define what members of .Asia means.
Okay, so in terms of members of .Asia, a member, .Asia ourselves is a membership organization. We're two types of members, one of which is what we call sponsored members. They are the gTLD operators around Asia. The others are Asia-Pacific regional internet organizations, and they're called co-sponsor members. They're like APNIC, APTLD, APNG, and a number of different internet organizations.
Thank you. I'd like to invite the next speaker, which is Yanis Lee from .Kids.
Thank you, Renania. This is Yanis. So let me briefly introduce the .Kids and our .Kids Foundation. So the .Kids Foundation is a not-for-profit organization which is initiated by the group of children's rights advocates, and actually we're the only community applicant for this .Kids domain. So .Kids domain is a domain for the best interest of kids. But then who should say what is the best interest of kids? It's just not only you and me. And we should involve the children perspective because they are the end user and they are the major target beneficiary. And according to the United Nations Conventions of the Rights of the Child, kids is those who are under 18. So in order to allow the children participation, actually we need a kids-friendly environment for policy making and also a kids-friendly content online so that they can easily understand what it is going on. So what I mean is kids-friendly is not only about kids safe, but it should be about something that relevant and easily understandable by kids, which is their unique need. But it's further, so that's about further building a better internet as a whole. And actually I heard a lot from different workshops and also the dynamic coalitions about children earlier yesterday is now going to be talking about better internet and also citizenship. It's not only about protecting them from some obscene pornography stuff. So therefore I would say, so actually so these are the missions of DocKids that actually we based on the UNCRC as a guiding principle, and we encourage children participation on internet governance, and we promote and advocate to kids-friendly content online. And what's more important is not only among the DocKids, but it's also the whole World Wide Web, which should use a kids-friendly content. And also as well, which is more important, is we will support the children community to work on these various initiatives by channeling back our profit to them. So therefore, actually, I would say new gTLD is a very good opportunity to engage, to advocate and develop a community. For instance, there are a few ways that how we engage the community. First of all, DocKids Foundation is also a membership consortium, which comprises of different children's rights organizations and also the child-led organizations from around the world. So right now, currently, we're still constantly outreach to different children's rights organizations, and then we keep informing the community about this new gTLD initiative. And currently, we already have some support from the Russia, from Africa, and also from the Asia region. So, and another way that how we engage the kids, which I say children participation, is by having a children advisory council, which we create the child-led organizations members. They form an advisory council, which they directly sit into our governance structure, and they can comment on how we should operate the DocKids. So this is how we engage the youth, the kids. And for instance, actually, yesterday I heard from the Nordic youth delegations that in Scandinavian countries, everybody in primary schools, they got an iPad, they got this smartphone device that they can use for e-learning. So that's why I want to emphasize how important it is we have to engage the children community in an early stage, because it's already a major part of them and they can get online very easily. So we need to let them know how they should behave online. And as said earlier about the advocacy part, actually DocKids itself, the mere presence of it can raise the awareness about the children's well-being and also advocate the kids-friendly concept around. And we actually DocKids, we have our kids-friendly content guidelines for all of our registrants, which how we promote this kids-friendly content. So after engaging these community and really raising the awareness of them, we then can really go on to develop the community and building their capacity and resilience in this. But however, we actually, there are some challenges that we face about the community engagement. First of all is that the children-centered organizations in the world, actually they only care about, they care more about the life and death services, which is like the survival issues of the children, but the internet is just not their first priority. So we take some time to really let them understand what is going on, what is new gTLD and stuff. And this is of course very important. But I mean, because internet right now actually have many problems for kids and related to them. But then which is very important for us to let them know. And so the existence of DocKids actually helps this in like promoting this idea to them. But then, however, like when we come to the application side, another challenge that I want to raise is about the ICANN application process especially on the financial assistance form, which we have to fill. They mostly highly favor to those developing countries. But I want to say is that who are developing countries? On the internet, actually, children are also a very underdeveloped community, and they're underserved, and their voice is rarely heard. So actually, we should redefine who is the developing. And also, secondly, is that the application or the applicant itself, I think, needs not to be from a developing countries, and it should be like the beneficiaries that they serve. For example, DocKids, we're just a facilitator, and we do not own the domain. We come from the community, and then also we are for the community. So I think ICANN should also take these into consideration when they do the evaluation process. And yeah, and I understand it may be difficult for ICANN to reach everybody from a top-down approach. So I think the mere presence of DocKids would help on this community advocacy, development, and engagement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yanis. Next, I'd like to invite Scott Seitz from .gay.
Whoops, sorry. I represent .gay LLC, and we are the only community application for .gay on the internet. There are other applications, all of those are business applications. I don't know why you would start something like this if you couldn't find a benefit or prove a benefit. That's bad business, and so we started by realizing that we're committed to creating safety, visibility, and support for the gay and lesbian community online and in the world. We started the process a little over 2 years ago, and one of the first things we needed to do is, for as much as you think ICANN regulates the internet, the gay community regulate each other pretty strictly as well. So just going out and coming up with a new idea and inventing it and throwing it on the community would have been a major mistake. We began by doing town halls all over the country, all over the United States, but also throughout England, and everywhere there's an ICANN meeting, we're actually holding town halls where the community organizations that are supporting us have been invited to come and bring their friends. So it's been a good process in addition to our overall website that has transparency for everything that we're doing. So engaging the community for us was also interestingly easy. The gay community, out of a place of fear and pain, actually created several networks around regular things that we would all take for granted. Travel, business, as well as human rights, as well as several other areas. So we were very linked into multiple organizations globally on the human rights front, like ILGA, as well as in the travel industry. For instance, the International Gay Lesbian Travel Association, which is made up of over 70 convention and tourism bureaus from over 110 countries. We also got involved with the international pride organizations, over 200 pride organizations, as well as the global Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce's and employee resource groups that are forming inside of Fortune 500 and many other companies. We also had outreach to gay and lesbian media. So as a result, now we're very proud to say that our outreach has, we have effectively received endorsement and have now moved our endorsers to advocates. And our advocates include, of the 12 United Nations gay, lesbian, IGB, LTQA associations, there are only 12 there. We have 9 of them supporting our application. We have over 130 organizations that are umbrella to close to 2,000 other organizations and 8 million members of the gay and lesbian community at this point endorsing and supporting us. One of the other benefits that I mentioned, in addition to safety, visibility, and support, I do want to go on to say that even though we're going to be operating as a business, 67% of our profits for domain sales will be going to the .gay Foundation, where a global group of nonprofits will direct and determine how that money is spent and placed. And again, how does the TLDs itself help develop for advocacy? The gay and lesbian community outside of urban markets is largely invisible, making us really easy to ignore by our businesses, our governments, and other individuals and institutions. So by allowing us to be visible through the .gay location namespace on the internet, we're simply developing a way for our community to be visible without necessarily risking the lives and health of the individuals that are participating. That sounds weird, so I should explain one other thing. The first wave, we think, for .gay is going to be a business-to-business wave. The coming out and being gay is something each individual chooses to do as far as your visibility, because you can be harmed, you can not succeed in your business. There are a number of reasons why people choose: family ties, government ties, etc. So by nature, the people who are first going to be involved in .gay will be the businesses. So the chambers of commerce that we mentioned, the travel industry individuals, the people who are already out, already doing advertising, already visible in the community through their human rights efforts and not-for-profit efforts, are going to be our first wave. As that happens, we'll continue to grow our visibility, and with that, more individuals will also be interested in a .gay domain. In addition to that, I think what's going to be, and time's up, but very quickly, the other benefit we think .gay is going to offer is that this is an organization that doesn't, or of people that don't necessarily have traditional means for networking and getting information. So in addition to the money that we'll be generating for the community, our goal is to hold on to very valuable namespace like .center, .pride, .health, .lesbian, .gay, .transgender, etc., to not only make room under the .gay umbrella for all of the community, but also to provide powerful engines in those namespaces, or in those domains that would normally be sold at auction for highest price. These are actually going to become hubs for the community to organize, and business engines for our not-for-profits and our businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Andre.
Thank you very much. Just a little story about the .det. .det is it's translated into .kids in Russian. So our application is IDN application. Just a few sentences about the story of the .det. When the ICANN, when we realized that it's getting closer to the final steps to open up the gTLD, new gTLD program in ICANN, we had a little working session in our office, and we were like improvising about what kind of new domains would be appropriate for Russia. Well, among .vodka and .oil and gas, which are obviously the commercial or maybe brand applications for Russian Federation. we decided that it will be really interesting if we start a project involving building the internet, the friendly internet for the children. And the reason for that was in the past of our organization. Traditionally, we are a non-commercial organization, a coordination center for .ru, the national gTLD for Russia. We are heavily involved into the various projects involving into the various kids-friendly projects. For example, we traditionally sponsoring scientific researches in, for example, kids' behavior in the internet. One of the largest one was European Union survey, which will run for 2 years, I believe, building a model of child behavior in the internet, and where a lot of scientific people, it was not like civil society, but was like scientific research, the impact on the psychology, the impact on learning, the impact on behavior. So we were traditionally sponsoring this kind of activities. Also, one of our projects is actually related to the internet governance issues is we've created an online game called Learn the Internet and Govern It. It's specially designed for the children. Well, it came out that this project is also interesting for a lot of state organizations because no one knew actually how the internet is working. So we go beyond the children education of the basic stuff about the internet. But it was one of our big projects which we picked up about 2 years ago. So overall, our council of our members of our organization decided that we have to build a company which will apply for the new gTLD.DT. And actually, let me introduce Vladimir Mamontov. He's here. He runs the foundation. It's a non-commercial foundation which was responsible for the .DT. But of course, it goes far beyond just accepting a new gTLD and running it, because there are some targets which we set for this company and for this project. Of course, the number one is apply for the .DT and accept it and run it smoothly, run it professionally. Second one is development of the child-specific content and stimulation of its development. Also, we involving specialists and professionals which are involved in various kids and child subjects, psychologists, doctors, artists making the cool movies, stories. So basically, our project is targeted to a very small child, like starting, 2 years old, or going up to 14, or something like that. Also, the main purpose of the project is building the internet for kids, for the Russian-speaking community. This is kind of big target because the main challenge of our project is involve into our activities the government, the businesses, the civil organizations, to populate actually the open platform for creating a child-friendly internet. Kind of broad target, but as I said, the gTLD application, which we're talking today, is very little part of the big thing which we're doing. Also, it's not a community application. Well, I'm kind of on this table, but we don't consider, unlike our friends, which we support each other actually, .kids. It's not a community application because it's a little different approach. We're building the environment where people and members of this activity will build the kids-friendly internet. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrei. It seems that there are common threads across the presentations. There needs to be outreach, awareness raising, engagement of the community before something can be initiated. And there are quite a few foundations being set up as mechanisms to handle the new gTLDs. I have a question for Edmund. Huron.Asia, is there a foundation that is set up to support or collaborate the expansion of .Asia?
.Asia is the organization and is the foundation itself. So we ourselves is organized as a not-for-profit organization. So the revenue that comes in from domain registrations go directly into community development projects.
So it seems that for every initiative there is plowback to the community, which is an added value for the community that the gTLDs are serving. I'd like to ask the second group of panelists to basically add their thoughts to the topic that we've been discussing. Cheryl Langdon-Orr.
Thank you, Renalia. Cheryl Langdon-Orr. And a couple of the notes I made, obviously I had to do Build It and They Will Come, because I couldn't possibly not write that down listening to actually all of the panelists so far. I was a little interested to hear that there is a huge amount of faith, and I can only assume knowledge of the risk associated with what is going into some of these applications. Because to take a build it and they will come attitude really means you've got to have a medium-term plan and commitment of a successful registry going on for some period of time. As Edmund said, I made a note from .Asia that it was a 6 to 10 year overnight success. And I think going in as a community applicant to pitch to potential sponsors and supporters and even government instrumentalities and cold, hard business people, to suggest that what you're going to have is a 6 to 10 year overnight success is a kind of scary thing. So I think as we're trying to analyse why those very, very sad statistics that Edmund also followed on from Renalia's introduction, where we're talking about 4%, stretch it up to 7%, and if we're really, really generous with everything to do with internationalised domain names, we can reach a woohoo 13%. It may not just be a lack of outreach. It may be a lack of first mover willingness. And what I think we should be focusing on now, and what I'd love to see the successful, and I trust they will be successful community applications, that are putting gTLD space together for the benefit of specific community. And that is why I've pushed IDNs for so long. It's certainly why I would support community applications, and I'm certainly a card-carrying member of the financial support that we need to give through things like the joint applicant support work out of ICANN. I just wonder whether we should be very cautious as organisations and instrumentalities to ask how we analyse this first lot of numbers, and I think we need to look at it very, very carefully. I believe there's partnership opportunities that will come out of this in the not too distant future, and that worries me. And it worries me not because I think partnership opportunities are not a good idea. On the contrary, I think they are probably a way of getting sustainability in many of these models. But what it does is it alters what this consensus-built bottom-up concept of new gTLDs and what is a community new gTLD, and it probably turns it on its head. I, for one, don't want to go back to basics and build another new gTLD program, an applicant guidebook, and I suspect many in this room would join me in that horror. So I think we need to be smart. I think we need to see this as an evolution opportunity, and I don't think we should become too critical of success or failure, both in the first round of applicants coming in and in the short-term financial sustainability and robustness of those who are successful and put their gTLDs out for the community. Thank you, Renalia.
Thank you, Cheryl. Fuad.
Thank you, Renalia. There are a couple of things when we talk about the community program, and that is, like Yanis was mentioning, developing the word developing should be encompassing even minorities and even groups that are not termed as developing, but they have a development aspect to them, because there's a certain level of assistance required. When we touch the word about development, development is basically assistance. development is a process whereby developed countries support developing countries, and that is the whole context in development. But then again, as innovation on the internet is happening and the way we are going right now, the way that our community at large, the internet community in general, believes development to be, is supporting such initiatives such as .kids and so forth to evolve. Now, within this lies another challenge. The challenges which have been laid out, I come from a developing country in which is Pakistan, and for us, I guess I was the only one who actually started discussing the new gTLD program in the country and getting people to use the media to send the word out. But the kind of questions that were coming in were really interesting. There was a certain group which was asking me, we think that the gTLD program will actually help us sort of do blanket censorship. Now that is a very big question. This is where the challenge of .gay comes in. For those societies which are not sensitive to such issues, for them this presents an opportunity or a challenge that they would be able to implement a top-level domain block. They could just do a blanket block on a certain domain. Another challenge, an opportunity that somebody was once discussing with me, was saying that the previous TLDs, which include the top-level TLDs, .com and .org and .net, provided an opportunity that nobody would be in a position to implement a blanket ban over top-level TLD. That means that communities won't be as much vulnerable as they are at the moment. So this is also another important challenge that we will be facing in the near future, and this is something we as civil society do believe that it is something which is going to be provoking a lot of discussion. Another important aspect of the community program is the outreach aspect, and the outreach aspect means that there has to be more efforts, or at least the community should play an even more proactive role to still continue to advocate the opportunity of community-based gTLDs. And why? Because these are like economic theories, liberalist, non-liberalist, but the idea behind that is that when you try to throw a technology into a region which has not covered the distance of evolution, not the progress of evolution, what happens is you've given them like a bottle of Coke, and now they're going to be fighting over the Coke bottle, but nobody's going to actually understand what do you do with the bottle. So this is what's happening with the new gTLD program in developing countries. For some, they may be realizing it. For most, the opportunity is still misunderstood. The opportunity is still, they're not educated about it. Where I see .kids making a very good impact, a very high impact is, I mentioned this yesterday elsewhere on the panel, that, for example, in my country, like 65% of the new generation is below the age of 24. And this is where Jens also makes a point that we are talking about kids who are defined by United Nations terminology as to be below 18 years of age. It gives a very good opportunity to help promote capacity about something that a generation will be opening eyes into. They will be living in a world which will not be just a .com or .net or .org world. It will be a world with maybe .name, like .generic names. And in that context, for them, they will see a whole new view of the internet. But for us, who have to fight a long struggle or a long battle to getting this program understood worldwide, it's going to take us at least, and I was analyzing the capacity building time required. It will actually take us 7 years or 8 years before wide recognition or understanding of this develops, before people can break their habit of typing .com in front of everything, before the habit of going beyond Google. So search engines will have to be proactive as well to sort of start including indexes of such new names. So there are challenges. We can term these as 3 levels of challenges. One is the immediate challenges. I don't call them short term. I call them immediate challenges. The challenges that you have to plan to respond to right now, which is, as Shava mentioned, sort of a risk analysis, being ready for the risk and finding short-term and long-term solutions to mitigating those risks. Thank you.
Thank you, Fuad. Next is Olga. Thank you very much, Rinalia. I want to thank the organizers for such an interesting workshop. I think it's very diverse. And thanks to Avralo and Edmond and Rinalia for the kind invitation. And I would like to commend all of the project that has been presented, especially .Asia. I think that I've been following what you do. It's much more than a registry. You do involve with the community, with young people. I've been seeing young people visiting different IGF and different meetings hosted by .Asia and trained by them. So I think that's really very good, and I commend the organization for that. I would like to bring a perspective from Latin America, where I'm from. I'm from Argentina. I do participate in this process, being an advisor to the government of Argentina and also being a university teacher. I teach networking at the university. I'm an engineer. So what happened in Latin America? As it was mentioned by Edmond, we had only 24 applications. In general, not community applications. All the applications from Latin America were only 24, which I think it's very low. What has been happening in all this process? Argentina participated in the GAC meetings. I am the GAC representative for Argentina, and I has been present in these meetings since 2006 and following, and we supported this process, and we supported the opening of the new gTLD space. We also had some concerns, and we raised that in the Governmental Advisory Committee in the early stages of this discussion about what could happen with relevant names of regions, names, mountains, rivers, sub-regions that could be taken or captured by this process. And there was a moment that we thought building a big list, but finally that didn't happen because it was really difficult to manage, and we realized that that was true. So finally, the guideline is what the guideline is now, and we are here. What happens now? We have almost 2,000 applications, very few from Latin America. I can assure you, I have explained this process and what is a TLD in every meeting, conference I had the opportunity to. I am a teacher not only in the university. I have prepared papers that were presented in University of Buenos Aires, also talked with the government. We organized meetings in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for all the community with ICANN, explaining, and with the local chamber of ISPs, explaining the meaning, what's the purpose, which is the value of new gTLDs. But the question we had in return was, what's the purpose? Why should I? Why should I apply for a new TLD? And there is you have to analyze this question when you realize what happens in the region. The region has very low intermediation for internet domain names. Argentina has only one active registered registrar. Latin America has less than 10, which is a very big region. The registrar has a value in the intermediation because I think it educates the customer in how to deal with internet names, and it has a broader offer, and beyond the .com or the local CCTLD, there are other options. So that's a first start to understand what's a TLD and what's the purpose and the value of a TLD. And I think that the region is lacking this intermediation, so the outreach and the comprehension of the value of domain names is a little bit behind. So what we have now? Now we have some very important community names taken by commercial brands as proposed TLDs, like the example of Amazon or Patagonia or some others. So now the community realizes that we have a problem and say what happened. So the bad thing is that these names are in danger, and the good thing is that the community now knows what is a TLD. If you check the comments made in the TLD space in ICANN, the TLD, the string with more comments, it's Patagonia with more than 1,100 comments. It's far away the one with more comments. So the Patagonia people reacted very actively, and they are very worried, and also the government reacted, and so all the governments of Latin America now reacted, and now they know what is a TLD. So bad side and good side as everything in life. Just to finalize, and I don't want to take much time, I think that communities are starting now in our region realizing what is a TLD. So perhaps in new rounds we will do better, and also using the facilities, the things that are in the ICANN process for paying perhaps less, or helping the communities in applying for TLDs. We do hope that this new round will not finally end capturing names. I think that our regions will go on, the companies will be happy, but it will not be a good message for ICANN to the whole community. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga. Now let's get into a discussion about the issues that have been presented by the panelists. I've heard quite a few issues raised. For example, Yanis raised the issue of the boundary of communities, and in the Internet Governance for Development plenary just a few days ago, the speaker from .PIR also articulated how challenging it has been to define the community and the boundary of the community itself, and also the challenges of trying to figure out what would the service be and thinking about community needs very carefully. So I'd like to throw this question to all the panelists and also to the audience, if you have something to contribute on this topic in terms of what are the challenges of defining the community. Cheryl, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Renalia. I think that definition of community is hugely important. And they're going to, in my view, sort themselves into easier piles and far more complicated ones. We had a perfect example on the panel today where it's a clear and more easily bound Russian-speaking community wishing and seeking child-appropriate material and also conductive research, etc., etc. That's a reasonable boundaried community, but it goes beyond border. And there's always going to be that but. I think in most of these, we have to look at the diaspora that matches with each of these communities. I guess I want to challenge all of us to think, does every community actually need to be serviced by a top-level domain? And I don't think the answer is yes. I think there is some that is going to be much more clearly, yes, indeed. And the names we see listed in Edmund's presentation and my fellow panellists here today have probably got the easy examples of those that are very clearly defined. But there are opportunities at the second level. And we need to remember that. You know, there are still opportunities in CCTLD communities. The CCTLD, I'm a member of the board of .au, and we are the administrator of the .au space. We do not run the registry, we contract the registry. What that means is I know how expensive it is to run one of those things. They're not cheap. You know, believe me, none of them are very cheap. There's a sustainability question here that we do need to not give the impression that all things have to be dealt with at this top level. But there's still opportunity in CCTLD. The CCTLD community that I'm involved with is one of the few that has dealt with geographics. We actually have every addressable locality Australia-wide. We worked with our Geographic Council. It is on a list, and if you are community, you can get that name, but you have to be joint community whole. So there's opportunities to meet some community need, even in the challenging matters of local names and addressable names, that I think there's still some clever ways out of that. But the other thing I wanted to do is channel Avri Doria, if I may. I know I'm not the blonde, but she said something very meaningful that it was an aha moment for me, and I think may have been for many of you in another panel earlier this week. And she suggested the benefit of a remedial round of new gTLDs, focusing specifically on the least developed and developing economies, having built the opportunity that Olga speaks of, that now some of the marketing of the concepts have been done because of the reaction to some of the applicants. Maybe there is a time for looking at that. And I think we just need to put it on the record here that there may be an opportunity for a remedial round, at which point I shall shush and let others take over.
Thank you, Cheryl. Other thoughts on boundary? Yes, Edmund.
I just wanted to jump right on the remedial round as well. It's kind of a very interesting thought. I wasn't in the panel in the workshop, so I didn't hear it live. But this is very interesting because if you look back at the history, we did have a remedial round actually previously as well, and .Asia was created in that round, which was in 2004. Those were the experimental rounds. I guess that should be termed that way. And so the first one in 2000 produced 7 new gTLDs, and then there were a lot of discussion about bringing the process forward, but identified community or identified sponsored community as a sort of an area to, sorry for using the word, fast track, so that it's it happened in 2004. So this is certainly something that is very interesting. But I did want to get back to a couple of items, and it's regarding the boundary concept. One of the things is that, yes, Cheryl, you're right that a lot of communities and a lot of times when we use domain names, really second-level domains, and there are lots of opportunities out there. One of the things that I do see, however, is that some of these community initiatives utilize the TLD as a banner or as a flag. It is the rallying point for getting the community together. I think that is one of the things that is somewhat missing in the current processes, and it needs some sort of tweaking. I'm not talking about overhaul of the process. I'm saying that a lot of the thinking of the current process, no matter if it's the community portion or the applicant support portion, is predicated on gaming, abuse, utilizing this process to get around to get ahead. But in reality, when we look at some of these initiatives, they could be new initiatives, and most of them are new initiatives, and it takes time for them to rally the people around it. So what is required as a already fully baked, endorsed community, and also fully baked financial support and all those kind of things may not be fully in place at the time they are able to put the application in. And I think this is one of the things that needs to be considered. I do understand the worry or the risk about the failure of these things, but I guess at least this is my personal view, is that perhaps we need to let some of them fail. I mean, if this is a program for innovation, and if it is a program for new ideas, some new ideas will fail. And as long as we have the protection in place for the consumers, for the people using the names, like I often bring this out, which is the sunset policy. We talk about sunrise so much. Can't we have a sunset sort of process to protect users or registrants of these TLDs and let them fail gracefully? If we have mechanisms to let things fail gracefully, we would be more comfortable allowing these ideas to be developed, allowing these community to bring them together, not before the application, but through the application as it is implemented. And I think, in fact, both .Asia and I'm sure .cat as well are good examples of those. I mean, once we got it in place, the community came together much more, and that I think is an important thing. And coming back to the boundary thing, is that in the context of internet, it was really actually for both the community requirements and the joint applicant support requirements, we tend to look at very fixed boundaries and geographic boundaries and those kind of things. But in the internet context, we really, that is again another kind of constraint that we put in to manage this round of process. But a remedial round or future rounds, we might be able to relax that a bit more and let the communities come in. So that's that.
Thank you, Edmund. Yanis also wants to chime in on this, but before she does, I just wanted to let the room know that you can also participate and ask your questions or give your thoughts on what's been discussed. Thank you. Yanis.
I just want to make a few points. So referring to what Cheryl said earlier about whether all communities needs a TLD to serve, I just want to say that some community really needs special needs, like they have special requirement or they need special facilitations. For example, dark kids, like the kids, according to the human rights of the United Nations, they really needs a special facilitation in language, cultural, or different aspects to understand different things, and they have the rights to participate. They have the rights to participation on the internet as well, and they need to express themselves. So I just want to say, in this case, kids is really a community that needs a TLD. For example, imagine like you're a kid, like you don't know where to go for internet, where is a safe place for you to go. So if there is a document existed, then you can easily know where to go and you will have your information there. And also regarding to the boundary issues, I do understand it is somehow difficult to bound what should be a community. But then I think what Admin said is really good, is that it is about collaborative effort. So actually, DOCUS, I would say, is a focal point for the people, for the children's rights organizations to understand and to get their attention on this new gTLD thing and how they can engage in this internet discussion and this dialogue. So yes, that's what I want to say, is about the collaborative efforts, and we can get more different people, not just the kids, to participate, but also the highly related stakeholders like the parents and also other children's rights organizations, teachers, and all the others. Thank you.
Thank you, Anis. You also wanted to chime in on this.
Yeah, there's about 10 topics going on here at one time. So let me just focus in on a couple of them, specifically as they pertain to .gay. The most important benefit we start with this community is having .gay at the table in meetings such as today. Civil society does a lot to protect the rights of gay and lesbian people. We often don't get the information back to the community as to what's really going on. .gay has become an advocate for the community, and we're letting our supporters understand what's going on here and creating visibility for the gay community, which is where it's all going to get started from. Secondly, to the rallying to a flag point, absolutely true. .gay is an umbrella organization, and we believe there is a benefit to the second level domain, as Cheryl mentioned. That benefit is by not selling it and by holding on to those key areas for our community and providing that space. We're a community. In '96, when I first started working in the gay and lesbian marketplace as a business person, I would get phone calls during Gay Pride where people were going, "Why are there so many gays now?" Well, there are not so many gays now. They are visible now, and that's the big point. So this will become the flag and the rallying point, if you will, for the gay community, and we're going to do our best to make sure that we reserve as many possible names as we can think about, and then some, by inviting the community to participate in this, and they have. So the second level is very important and not to be ignored. There's also I think one of the other things that we're trying to do as we create a benefit for the community is understand, or I'm going to talk about an area of censorship. Believe it or not, for as many people that are worried about .gay as being one big porno site, I'm more worried about the general market and the rest of the world out there that's going to prevent some 15-year-old from finding good, healthy, correct information about being a gay, lesbian, bi, transgendered, intersexed, or an advocate to this community and more. So as we peel back the onion and learn more about ourselves, and as censorship possibly moves forward, I'm more worried about getting the right kind of information to these kids, because right now very conservative cultures and organizations are very much in place to try and get poor information to those folks. And as a result, I know this number is specific to the United States, but I don't know if it's not a global number as well. In all the studies that have been over the last 15 years, the studies that have been done on teenage suicide, over 30% of teenage suicide is directly related to sexual orientation. That number hasn't changed in the 15 years that I've been in the gay community, doing marketing and understanding these numbers and working with those organizations. So censorship is an issue for us as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the floor? Yes. Microphone, please. Can we have a microphone?
Hi, Steve Delbecq with Net Choice. I want to pick up on Edmund's comment about smooth failures, right? Because the internet culture is all about experimentation. Experimentation is the right to succeed, but also the right to fail. And if a failure were to occur after you've built up a TLD, the registrants are the ones who probably suffer the most. And the ICANN plan was to be able to redelegate that top-level domain to somebody else or potentially to run it themselves. And I wondered what you meant by failing and whether the notion of protecting registrants is there, because a lot of registrants being disappointed could shed a very bad light on the entire gTLD expansion, making it that much harder to do a remedial round or another round later on. So we all have a joint interest in having this program go well while acknowledging that it's very expensive to run a TLD. Cheryl talked about the costs for the technical. Those are a fraction of the costs you have to spend in marketing and advertising to build the brand awareness. And if these begin to go under, I think we have to think about the implications for that.
Thank you, Steve. Can I just invite more questions from the floor for the panelists, if there are any? Yes, Marilo.
Thank you. You were speaking about the .gay community. Obviously, it's a positive thing that it's an opportunity to have more visibility in the online world for a specific community. But I'm thinking about the dark side of it, in the sense that .gay is going the face of the gay community, and you mentioned more conservative cultures and them thinking censorship. I mean, it's going to be easier for a government to identify and to block and to censor .gay than individuals that browse or are on the online world, not within a specific community that identify itself as a promoting or you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I don't know whether I'm being clear, right? Being of a specific community.
Do you want me to comment? Okay.
Thank you.
That worries me.
Yeah. One more question, please, from the gentleman in front, and then one more, and then I'll get the panelists to.
Thank you. I'm sorry if you've already addressed this issue. I just arrived a little bit late. I'd appreciate some insight on this, even if you've already done that. My question is, how do you get your own dot something? Let's say you have .asia and .ked. I mean, how you can get your own? And what's the relationship between ICANN and the people who have these top-level domain names? Do they own it? Are they for-profit, non-for-profit? And what's the relationship between ICANN and?
Thank you. And one more from Yaovi, and then I'll have to come back to the panel.
My name is Yaovi. I want to follow up with what my colleague, the person just spoke, said. My personal view is that we should not have too much passion on this new gTLD issue. Because for me personally, the number from the region, how many applicants, is not an issue for me as a user. Because most of the time, when some applicants, we are advocating for community, all these things. At the same time, we are concerned about the cost. And then he said something. We have to also care about all the technical implication, because I can be a community, a passion to having my domain name. And he just asked the question: if I want to have Yaovi for my first name, .yaovi, .atoum for my last name, there are other technical implications that imply that we need to go slowly. And then even for the intermediate round, we need to, as people suggested before, to have an assessment. So the point is that we are, the good one is that people, there is some awareness from this program. People know that gTLD is very important. But at the same time, is bringing an issue for users. 2 months ago, somebody was registered for his domain name. He took .com, and I advised him to take, instead of .com, .org. But like 3 weeks ago, somebody take the same domain .org. So for the user point of view, one user who normally should have one domain name should have to take maybe 10 or 20 domain name at the same time. Just in doing redirection to protect his domain. So it is an issue for the user at the same time, because when I'm getting one domain, I may have to get 3 or 4 more that I think potentially people may take to block me in the future. So the conclusion that is a very important program. We should, from this one, make an assessment, and before the second intermediate round, before taking this decision. So, but anyway, it's a very good program, bringing awareness. People knows about the importance of having a domain name. Thank you.
Thank you, Yovi. Edmund, a quick response on smooth failures.
Thank you. So, Steve, I guess I'm talking about both. I'm talking about the current, the process which moves it to some other operator, which the concept of which is to run a TLD perpetually, essentially, right? That is the sort of level of risk that we're willing to tolerate. What I'm saying is that we should allow a level of risk that is even further. We should allow TLDs to wrap it up, to take it out completely. But we need a process to do that. We have the sunrise process, we've talked so much about it. But what about a sunset process? Yes, the biggest impact would be the registrants who have invested their the brand or whatever, their operations and all that into the domain. But there are TLDs that have sort of faded away in the past, like I guess .su. It's still in there, but that no. I mean, it you can wind it down over time.
It's pretty healthy.
Right. So but .yu and those kind of things. But there, what I really mean is that if we can develop a sunset process, maybe it might be a 10-year process, right? Because right now the most number of years you can register a domain for is 10 years under ICANN gTLD rules. So maybe that you won't allow renewals anymore for the next 2 years. Over a period of time, the TLD can fade away. So that's what I mean by gracefully letting it fail. And if we talk about if a TLD fails, it moves to another operator, and you force that operator to operate it perpetually. That's not quite letting it fail in a way. So that's I think that's sort of the concept that I wanted to bring up.
Thank you.
Sorry, just want to add one more point. I apologize for this gentleman. When I first started the discussion and overview, I did not talk about the new gTLD process and how to apply through the ICANN process and the agreements with ICANN, because at that point when I surveyed the room, most of people seemed to have some knowledge about it. But after the panel, I'm more than happy to answer those questions.
Scott, on the dark side.
Briefly. Brief is difficult for me. So censorship is a clear issue in many, many ways, as well as blocking. One of the good things that came out of the Toronto meeting for ICANN was a discussion that blocking actually, if that's being done, there are technical issues that could surface for the countries that are doing it. So I'm very hopeful that means that they have to fall back on what they're already doing, which is utilizing different softwares to block names. Make no mistake, the software out there blocking names right now is incredibly effective. So if somebody wants to block gay, lesbian, bi, transgendered, sexual, or anything, it's already getting blocked. So this whole other layer is less concerning to me. I think again, because we can become an advocate for the community, our goal and our need is to be very vigilant inside of organizations like this to find ways to make sure we have security, safety, and ways for people to get good information. Example would be, we would look at ways for us to build a site specifically for information for young people that would be trusted, that would be reviewed by medical and psychological associations worldwide, and be a place where any adult would be comfortable, if they're comfortable, to send their child there.
Thank you. I'd like to bring the discussion back to the issue of sustainability. And Olga raised the point of the importance of availability of registrars in proximity of where you are. And in the IG4D plenary also, the .PIR person raised the point that you need local partners to distribute the names to be successful, and perhaps vertical integration could be a solution. And vertical integration, as far as I understand, is the cross-ownership between registries and registrars. So is this a solution? Can the panel address this question?
Cheryl here.
Sorry, Cheryl first and then Olga.
Thank you. As a survivor of the vertical integration work group, I would suggest that it is a solution, perhaps not the solution that we could be working on.
Olga.
Thank you, Renalia, and thank you, Cheryl. I think that it will be both. I think that some local partners could be relevant in relation with knowing the local community, knowing the local companies, especially the small and medium enterprises. Big companies have already a policy for domain names and they're protecting them, especially those that are spread in the region or globally from the region. But the issue is that, at least in Latin America, most of the local industry is driven by small and medium enterprises. Most of them don't even have one web page. Some of them are using Facebook as a web page holder, which is okay, but I think it's both that the company should do it. It's online with social networking, at the same time have a nice website, perhaps with interaction with the community. So I think that the partnership with local companies that already have the networking for reaching these small and medium enterprises and some communities is relevant. And I would like to also make a comment about the remediation. And this is a comment made by myself as an optimistic person without remedy. I think that perhaps there could be a way that some companies that have applied for closed brand TLDs could have the flexibility of thinking about the second level, and which will be the registration policies. Because if a name of a region is taken by a brand as a closed brand TLD, there is no way that the community of that place has a say in that TLD. But if there is a way to think about a solution, a remedy for bringing those parties together, and this is, please take me as a personal comment, not as my country comment. This is hope I have to, because it should be a win-win, not a lose-lose. Because if the company doesn't have the name and the region doesn't have the name, then it is lose-lose for everyone. So the remedy would be nice, and thinking about the second level would be relevant to know what the company wants to do with the second level. Imagine a name of a region with the second level names of countries. So which is the policy that they will use. If we know that, or if there is a way to remedy how the applications as closed brand has been presented, that could be a way out. But this is Olga thinking, not the country.
Caveat noted. Andre, I'd like to know, what are the key sustainability factors for you?
I'd like to refer to the Edmund's words. Well, I believe that most of the applications will fail. Excuse me. Because in the internet, you just take this metrics of success stories in the different startups, and if you applied it to a new gTLD program, well, among all the brands, of course, supported by the huge money, we all we all in the same boat, and there is no warranty, there is no guarantee that our projects will rocket. So let's say, this is just hard work. You do your work, you do it good, then you succeeded. If not, you fail. That's it. That's a whole sustainability model, to my opinion.
Sorry, can you also touch on the importance of partnerships and what type of partnerships? Because I know that it runs across the panel, but I would like it articulated more.
Partnership. Well, in all cases, at least discussed at this table, it's all about the partnership. I mean, in .kids model, it's a partnership. It's a platform where you engage the young people to build their own environment. In our, it's basically a partnership with kids and also with organizations who's dealing with the kids. In our case, it's the same, but a little bit reverse. We build the platform, and the specialists, the professionals build the platform and the content, and government supported, and business involved into sponsoring. So it's all about the partnership. I mean, what else? I mean, in your question, what specific was in your question? I just don't quite understand, because this is all about the partnership.
Right, it is exactly about the partnership. A partnership is a big word, and it could mean many things. In the case of .kids, for example, .Asia is their safety net. There is a kind of partnership and supporting organization.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. We, of course, we are the sponsor. We've created this foundation, which is running for the application for the .kids. But as I said, it goes beyond the gTLD. I mean, most of 80%, more than 80% of the work they do is not related to the gTLD application. For us, it's just our traditional registry work, and 80% of the work performed by the colleagues is actually related to the other activities, dealing with the people, organizations, government, building a partnership, involving the artists, etc., etc. It's not about the internet at all.
So there is a lot, as you said, a lot of hard work, a lot of mobilization, a build-up process in getting ownership and community excited about it. Yes. Any other questions from the floor that's really burning? Because we're coming up to 5 more minutes. Okay. If there are no questions, I'd like you have a question. You have a comment on sustainability. Okay, just very quickly. Go ahead.
So the other part of sustainability that I don't think people have really put a lot of time and effort into thinking through is how sustainable is a business if you're in a contention set with 11 other people and you just paid $110 million to own a domain. How many people do you have to sell to? How much will that have to cost, and everything else? So we have a lot of wild-ass movers and shakers in the business community who are taking a look at this, who are getting all hot and bothered like an art auction at Sotheby's, and it is not going to be pretty. And so as far as sustainability on the community side, I think the aha moment should be this for everybody. The crazies shouldn't say that. It's a different animal than what I'm doing. What we're doing at .gay, and we have one application and we're doing one thing, and we haven't spent all of our time trying to figure out how to kill everybody else. We're just trying to do our job. But on the community application, where I think there's an issue is that when you go out and looking for financing or looking for community and talking about the foundations or the support that you're getting through your partnerships, you're talking about partnerships in that situation as somebody who's funding you. The gay community is largely self-funded. When you start an application process at $185,000 to individual organizations out there who barely are getting by, who are almost entirely run by volunteers, who do not have the bandwidth to pay any attention to this until, much like corporate America, it's shoved into their face and they just have another Patagonia situation on their hands. We need to take a look at the community application process, because in fact that is a different animal. It is going to be more bootstrap. We will plan for that kind of slow 10-year success. We will not plan for the instantaneous amount of money because it's not going to be there. There's not necessarily going to be a foundation there or a partnership there to back us up. So I think the community foundation or the community process in general has been largely disadvantaged, keeping a lot of organizations and community people out, and it has to really be considered a little differently than the general business process and standard process that's out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. So in our final wrap-up, since Avery Doria is in the room and she is the chair of the new gTLD working group and has brought up the suggestion of a remedial round of new gTLDs.
I quoted you, Avery. Sorry.
Yes, she channeled you. And I'd like each one of the panelists, if you have a message for Avery in terms of what the remedial
Sure. Thank you, Renalia. Well, I guess I'm just thinking out loud here, but three things really. One of which is the financial support program needs to be tweaked. As I mentioned, a lot of the times initiatives there are new initiatives, and to have them demonstrate financial stability is a problem in itself, and it's shown by the lack of participation in that process. The other one is the community process. The community evaluation process itself is not really in allowing initiatives to be formed around communities. The communities themselves should well be established long before the process, the new gTLD, but bringing them together requires time, and I guess the .age experience is that that it would happen after the new gTLD is in place and becomes a flag and a beacon for the community to rally around. And the third point was something that I forgot. Oh, the third point was Steve brought this up, and I guess the concept of allowing it to fail more, allowing initiatives to fail gracefully and to fail completely. Sort of what I call a sunset process kind of thing, and put that in place, and so that our risk tolerance is higher in the process.
Thank you. Yanis, do you have any thoughts on?
Just a quick one. I'm thinking about this from a community perspective, which I think most of the communities, most of the organizations of people from the community, general public, they don't have a knowledge about new gTLD, and I think the guidelines, the applicant guidebook, may need a more summary or an easier version, which those who are not familiar with our industry can understand, because there may not always be a service provider, or there may not always be industry experts that they can help them to understand this. Thank you.
Thank you. Fuad.
One thought that was going on continuously in my mind is that we took nearly a decade to come down to approving the launch of the new gTLD program, but we did not give time to plan out our concerns to the extent that we're able to sensitize or be sensitive to community needs. Communities are diverse. Communities' needs are diverse. Their age groups, their demographics, their security levels, everything would vary. The kind of environments these communities live in and operate in, and what they are already being pressurized with in their regions or in their countries or in their on their groups or communities. These are challenges. ICANN will have to learn to be sensitive. ICANN will have to learn to be open much more than the free market economy. It will have to realize that there's sort of a social economy to the whole new gTLD program as well. And when we're talking about communities have to be listened to. We cannot just keep them disconnected from ICANN and we expect that we've designed the perfect program that will help them. We have to go back, we have to revisit, number one thing. Number two thing, same rules, same opportunities should be there for the community applicants as well. They should also be allowed for graceful retirement. They should also be allowed to possibly co-op. There should be sort of a cooperative approach to helping them succeed. It goes to the extent that there should be efforts where ICANN and its already existing business community would also help to make these communities successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl.
Thanks, Renalia. I think the thing that I'm taking away from today's session and would like to share with Avery, seeing as we've put you in the hot seat, but there you go, is I've heard a lot about the power of partnerships. Now, in the panel here, there are partnerships that have been, in the main, established in the preemptive, pre-application phase. I think we also need to think about the power of partnerships during and post-delegation. Because I think there is going to be a shifting landscape. I think there needs to be a shifting landscape. We did not know what we did not know when we wrote the book, so we need to be a bit more open.
Andre.
Well, everything being said, I'd like to wish a success to all the participants on this table. That's the main thing.
Scott, I'll let Olga have the last word. Scott, you go ahead.
Whoops, sorry, did it again. My 2 cents on the whole thing is the point that I just brought up before, which is I think that, and Avery and I are on board with a lot of these things, but the need to elevate community in the eyes of the ICANN organization as one of the true reasons why this whole process was opened up in the first place, and to make it easier or make it a different maybe model for a community application versus a business application, because there are these barriers to up-and-coming countries or organizations and other communities are just still too big for participation globally.
Thank you. And finally, Olga.
Thank you, Renalia. And I would like to stress this idea of remediation and the hope for flexibility. And in those TLDs that have been presented in a certain way, that could be a way that the community could have a say about closed-brand TLDs or related with communities. I think what the good thing now is several communities know much more about new gTLDs, of what we have been doing for outreach for more than 10 years about this issue, and that is good. What is not good is that we are facing kind of a moment, a decision moment, and I think that Fuad said something really relevant. ICANN should realize that this is a turning point for their internationalization. As I said many times, if a brand keeps the name of a region, that's for the brand, it's fantastic. The region will go on. Rivers, nice places will go on. Tourism, people that live there have their lives. Nothing will change. What will happen with ICANN? Thank you.
Thank you. And now we come to the end of our workshop. I'd like to thank everyone for staying. I know we've exceeded the time. We started the workshop with the question, is there value for community in terms of new gTLDs? And the applicants at the table basically demonstrate that they do see value, but perhaps others need more help in understanding what the value is, and perhaps the sharing within various and across various communities could be enhanced, and perhaps ICANN and IGF could help that process further. There are also clearly some challenges. Andre summed it up as it's a lot of hard work, and it will continue to be hard work, and Edmund touched on the smooth failures. There will be failures as well, and perhaps we need to help them be graceful failures rather than really drastic ones. And so much work remains to be done. There is a lot of observation to be done in terms of the successes and failures of new gTLDs, and I'm sure that ICANN will probably do future rounds if it is allowed to do so, and Avri, you are instrumental in that process, so please help. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy lunch.
Thank you, Renalia.